I, Alphonse Erdrich, wish Clive, Morchella, Shine, Martrice, Tethys, Lum, Einar, Steer, and myself were on the city of Crusaal on the morning of the 28th of Egypt, unhurt, with all of our current possessions.
With 23 diamonds in hand, they all land upon the beach, unharmed. Lum, furious at them for leaving the remains of his family behind with Seraphina, pulls his weapon on the group, but after being quickly subdued, takes the gems he has and sulks on the other side of the beach. Clive, knowing he needed a heart-to-heart, consoled his father, and the two of them decide that it is best if Tethys spreads the diamonds across the sea so that they may never be abused again. Tethys says her goodbyes as her husband finds her on the shore. With their home under attack, he needs her home quickly. Up from the shore to the cliffside town of Crusaal. They see it in the middle of a refugee crisis, filled with people from both Nightcrest and the remains of Triare. The outskirts of the town filled with their camps. Vecna calls for Martrice to show himself to the people and declare himself their savior. But keeping his head down, the crew makes their way to the Silver Serpent Inn, encountering Senev, one of the people who fought them on the Bastion months before.
That evening, Flint is transported from Accordia to Crusaal by Meros. She met with the employer, his wishes for her to build an army to help with the invasion of Nightcrest. To assist with this, he has given her access to the Whispering Forge, with more than enough space for her to build the army, a flying ship, and has provided an automaton assistant, Echo. As she begins to familiarize herself with the forge, she begins to find mysterious notes strewn about, signed by someone known only as MX.
While out on the town, the rest of the group is followed by Shade, Shine's brother who disappeared years ago. Shine follows Shade after he offers to show Shine where he has been, something bigger and more nefarious than even he anticipated. He brings Shine to the basement of a destroyed building that is connected to a network of tunnels beneath the surface. Here he finds figures in red cloaks, worshipping a withered hand, chanting, "He will return." Leading this group is Eldeline. She is revealed to be the mother, Alicent Aquila, possessing the once dead body of Eldeline. She threatens Shine and scolds Shade for being a stranger down to the tunnels. After she deals with Shade, he will be allowed to meet with Shine in 2 days in the Silver Serpent Inn.
After his release, Shine runs into a part of a larger group of bounty hunters searching for Morchella, and after quickly misdirecting them, returns back to the Silver Serpent Inn. Still out on the town, the rest of the crew finds they're being followed by multiple copies of Meros, who, after they return to their room, confronts them about why and how they are in Crusaal, when he last saw them in Accordia hours ago. The group agrees to tell him what's going on, but only if they can have an audience with the employer.
The very next morning, they once again meet Narcisco Carlyle, the governor of Crusaal, the would-be Palatine of a Bastion, also known as the Employer. They reunite with Flint, who believes it has only been a day since she had seen them last, but for the rest of them, it had actually been many months. They explain to Narcisco that his plan, in the future, fails, but intentionally forget to mention Flint's death. Narcisco, now seeing that the group can help, tells them of his plan: to invade Nightcrest with the help of Flint's automaton army during the Festival of Souls, where the countervails will be lowered to temporarily return magic to the country of Nightcrest. Worried that there might be a leak within his tightly knit crew, Narcisco asks them to be on the lookout for potential spies. Him and Meros leave the room after informing the crew of a war meeting that will be happening in a few days' time. Later that day, Shine is out gathering supplies where he once again runs into the mother, casually strolling the streets. Curiously, she tells Shine that she is quite pleased with the group's involvement in the invasion of Nightcrest. Meeting Shade at the Silver Serpent as promised, the two brothers recount their exploits and wonder if more sinister powers are at play with the invasion. As progress was made on the construction of both the army and the ship, Suspicions of Narcisco arose as Flint found more and more cryptic notes left by MX, or Maximilian. During one of his checkups, the group asks Narcisco about Max. He tells them that after his shop was destroyed, Narcisco took him under his wing, giving him the resources to build the Whispering Forge, but shortly after its completion, he got sick and died. Discovering gaps in Echo's memory, Flint begins to prod inside, hoping to learn more about Max. In doing this, she discovered that Max died of creeping flesh, after going out into the town raving about his mother and father. That evening, Martrice communes with Vecna, as his new patron, asking if Narcisco was working with the mother. And after hesitating for a moment, he says no, and leaves Martrice, saying, "See you soon."
The following day, Shine corners Narcisco in the streets and demands he tells him everything he knows about the mother and what secrets he's hiding. Taking him back to the governor's home, known affectionately as the House, he tells all, revealing the name that he was born with, Farouk Salen, and the fact that he is from Treyra. But because he does not have the ability to use magic, he was kicked out at a very young age. He tells Shine that he did have a run-in with the mother a few weeks prior, where she told him that Nightcrest will be saved, but the invasion must fail. He says that he denied her claims and went about his day, and she has not bothered him since. Before leaving, Shine tells Narcisco that he still doesn't fully trust him, but Narcisco counters, telling Shine that he trusts him completely.
Returning back to the forge, Clive has discovered a chamber just on the other side of the walls. Stone shaping it open, it is revealed to be the same room that Shine had seen the withered hand and the mother. Not putting it back together quick enough, they are attacked by cultists who slice off his hand and replace it with the withered one, the hand of Vecna.
After the conflict, Brador appears to the group, but only hours before he dies. He wishes Erdrick and the crew luck, and to be careful, as the collection of both the eye and the hand would cause him to have to intervene.
That night, during the party at the House, everyone changed into varying levels of disguise. Erdrick, Martrice, Shine, and Flint, with the permission of Narcisco, investigated the basement below, looking for any information that may be useful to their cause. After removing the arm of a mind-controlled Provost, they are able to find a series of books with pages that create a star chart, one that depicts the night sky in the year 747, on the day of the Festival of Souls. The words, "It took 5 to bind him," labeled near the stars above Treyare.
Upstairs, Morchella and Clive get the town gossip on Narcisco to try and suss out any inconsistencies in his story. Their tea time is interrupted, however, by Qdora bounty hunters, one that the shrine has seen a few days prior, crashing the party. The leader of this group asks to speak to Narcisco, who obliges and behind closed doors beats the man to death for intruding on his party.
The crew suggests a change of plans after seeing more and more coincidences line up. They plan to infiltrate Nightcrest a week early and take out the countervails, or even try to incite a civilian revolt against their oppressors. Narcisco agrees, but tells the group not to tell anyone of this plan, not even Meros, who he is growing more and more suspicious of, especially since he has not seen him all evening.
Returning to the Whispering Forge, they find it completely ransacked, with all the letters from Maximilian missing, and Meros steps from the shadows claiming responsibility. A battle ensues, with multiple layers of illusion that destroys a portion of the forge and sows mistrust of their own senses. The final illusion of Meros disappears, revealing that he wasn't present for the entire fight. Per the request of the group, Narcisco appears the next morning and is sat down for questioning because of Meros' involvement. After hearing their questions and calming their fears of his potential involvement in the situation, Narcisco reminds them of the war meeting that will be happening in a few days' time.
During this meeting, they meet Hartuk, the former captain of the guard in Nightcrest and longtime friend to Martrice. The invasion plan involves landing troops on every side of the island led by 2 commanders, Shade and Senev, Hartuck and Pravas, and Shepard and Lum will each land their troops, with Narcisco leading the charge on the final quadrant.
A problem that Narcisco did not account for is that, based on the information from a spy, the people of Nightcrest seem to believe that their occupiers are there, in fact, to protect them. The spy suspects that people must be under some sort of spell. Once the rest of the commanders leave, our crew settles their own plans. They will go in and destroy the countervails. Then, on the day of the invasion, hold the docks so that Narcisco can land the majority of their forces.
The final preparations are made before their infiltration of Nightcrest. Martrise casts legend lore, wishing to know more about Tal Vecna, the Summoner. Through the casting of the spell, he found out that Vecna was an incredibly powerful cleric that came from the city of Nightcrest, who went by the name of Verorium Thagion, accidentally leaving his home in the Feywild by falling through a rift that brought him to the material plane. He began his quest to do everything in his power to return back. In his journey, he discovered that the self-proclaimed gods were attempting to transcend through the planes. In the guise of helping them, he tried to send himself back home. After realizing this plan was fruitless, he sabotaged their device. As the gods attempted to transcend, they tore a rift into the limbo dimension above the city of Accordia. Knowing he needed more time to achieve his goals, Verorium turned to more nefarious means of power, becoming an undead lich. He enslaved a town off the coast of Nymeria, forcing them to begin construction of an enormous summoning circle, planning to bring the country of Nightcrest to the material plane. In his success, he killed most of the population of the city, with the rest having their memories erased, not knowing how or why they are here. Verorium marched through the city, proclaiming himself as Tal Vecna, the Summoner, the one who brought them here. Drawn by the amount of death in the area, Athreos appeared to help guide the thousands of souls to the next life. Lensa Thagion, knowing that she had some symbol of status, aligned with Athreos to aid those into their next life, becoming known as the Summoner, the one who saved them all. Enraged by this betrayal of not only his people, but his daughter, Vecna went onto a rampage, reducing the southern half of Shadras to nothing but sand and ruins, afterwards turning his sights to Adesh. For the first time, Vecna understood that he may need help in destroying this particular foe. He turned to the Triarans, knowing that they were no friend to Qudora. In his arrogance, he agreed to meet the Council of Five on their own turf. The Five destroyed his body and banished his soul into the limbo dimension, not quite dead, not quite alive, and never to be resurrected.
The ship is completed the day before and is coined all for naught. The same morning, Narcisco makes his trip down to the forge to give the crew their means of communication, a psychic link. One that not only all of them use to communicate telepathically, but also allows those who are willing to see through each other's eyes. After cautioning them that the scroll that is being used to cast the spell is one that was made by Meros, the group reluctantly agrees, and the six of them and Narcisco are linked. He invites them to dinner as a send-off, but also as a celebration of his rebirth day.
Continuing their planning during this dinner, Narcisco suggests the idea of them taking their ship and flying to the top of the palace after the ground forces have made their way to the base of it. They will take the palace and meet in the middle. Narcisco shows them the armor he will be wearing, one he hasn't worn in quite some time. Shine recognizes it as the armor worn by someone he worked with on the mission that Shade disappeared. After dinner, Shine and Clive hang back to snoop on Narcisco, discovering that the ceiling in the study had been painted to look like the star chart they had found in the basement. Meanwhile, the other four go back to the forge to see the Mother admiring the ship. When asked what she wants, she says it's not about what she wants, but what he wants. And he wants to reset, to pull the planes of existence back together. And thanks, Erdrick, for taking care of most of the gods, as there is no one to stand in his way. She leaves them, telling them that she will see them soon.
Before heading back to the forge, Shine and Clive stop at the Silver Serpent to say goodbye to Shade before the invasion. He recounts the end of their last job together, and Shade tells them that he tried to kill Baron, dropping a building on him and stabbing him right in the eye. The same right eye that Narcisco is also missing. Putting two and two together, they hug and say their goodbyes, brothers parting willingly this time. They all reunite, gathering their belongings, and load up into the ship. With a strike of Clyde's fiddle, the ship raises into the air and flies off towards Nightcrest.
The day's journey to Nightcrest went without issue. Even with their lack of magic, the city seems to prosper from beyond the shore. After making port, they see for themselves what the spy was talking about. The Qdorans act less like an occupying force and more like people who are there to help, and the citizens of Nightcrest seem to treat them the same. They have established food banks for the people, in the understanding that without magic, they will struggle. Beginning their investigation of the countervails, they start with this food bank, which, after getting some food, proved easy enough with very little guard presence.
The countervails themselves negate all magic, even the incredibly powerful magical items that they have in their possession. The other three countervails were located in each of the quadrants of the city, each with their own separate challenges. Morchella and Clive convinced the guards in the spring countervail that their tower was infested with giant bugs known as Hermano cockroaches. Horrified at the infestation, the guards let them pass to inspect the tower, and eventually return with explosives disguised as bug bombs.
Somehow, this plan worked at every other countervail except for the winter one, which was in the middle of the Qdoran encampment. So, as the other three exploded and all the soldiers ran to the people's aid, leaving it unguarded, they destroyed that one too. The people of Nightcrest, rather than attack their oppressors with the return of their magic, cowered in fear and ran to their homes. The next morning, King Mareth, Martrice's brother who usurped the throne by inviting the Qdorans to their city, had a speech for everyone in the city. He declared that the conflict that he foresaw has made its way to Nightcrest sooner than he had hoped, and because of that, Qdora is sending reinforcements to defend their city. He is also ordering a total evacuation so that no innocent people are injured in the battle, and to assist with that, Narcisco Carlyle will be sending ships to evacuate people to the city of Crusal.
Confused with Narcisco's involvement, the group begins to scramble, demanding to know what's going on. Narcisco replies, telling them that this is how they are going to get past the outer defenses that the Qdorians have in place. 2 waves of ships, one actually evacuating the people of the city, and the other several days later to bring in the troops. Content but still suspicious, the group splits up with Clive, Morchella, Erdrick, and Flint taking the all-knot to find and destroy Qdorian reinforcements, while Shine and Martrice stay in Nightcrest to keep tabs on everything happening in the city. Shine and Martrice spend most of their time watching the people of the city, with most still decorating their homes for the Festival of Souls. On an evening out, Shine scopes out the docks, seeing a Pegorian government ship, as well as finding 2 people dressed in purple cloaks, talking about the day of the invasion. Somehow, the Armanis have made their way into this conflict, thousands of miles from their home.
In the sky, after a day of traveling, they encounter the Qdoran reinforcements, but not as they expected. 20 airships streak across the sky of varying sizes, headed toward Nightcrest, led by the Iron Cloud, a 500-foot armored zeppelin lined to the teeth with weapons. After carefully staying out of sight, they drop 2 explosives onto the balloon of the ship, hoping to engage and take down a majority of their forces. But as the smoke clears, the Iron Cloud approaches, causing the Alfernaut, which was positioned above, to collide with and slide down the rigid hull of the Zeppelin. Clive, thinking fast and dropping the anchor, does some serious damage to the ship, and after free-falling out of range of the countervail placed on the Iron Cloud, the Alfernaut speeds away back to Nightcrest with no way of stopping the incoming forces. As the airships arrive the next day, they bring in hundreds of troops, armed to the brim and ready to defend Nightcrest. As the sun sets on the final day before the invasion, Heliod appears to Erdrick, telling him that he cannot see past tomorrow. there may not be a future for him in this world, but in times of need, to always look for the light, and he will guide him.